Oh, hi. I bet you didn't recognize me. For those of you who are new here, my name's David. I'm an artist, illustrator, and muralist, and I've just wrapped up a really busy summer of muraling. I am so grateful to have had such a busy few months, painting 4 murals this summer. For my 2 latest projects, I tried out a completely new method for transferring my designs, using the MetaQuest 3S and contourapp. As a complete newbie to this process, I thought it might be helpful to break down my experience for anyone else curious about giving it a try. As someone who is admittedly not that tech savvy, I was skeptical about incorporating VR into my process. But after doing some research, I figured there was only one way to find out. So I picked up the MetaQuest 3S and decided to give it a go. Today I'm going to walk you through what I feel worked, what didn't, and if I feel this is worth having in your mural toolkit. Let's get into it. I had been seeing an increasing number of muralists use this tech, and my curiosity continued to grow. After doing my research, I found the 2 devices that artists were consistently using were the MetaQuest 3S and the MetaQuest 3. I will leave explaining the plethora of technical differences between these 2 devices to, well, let's face it, someone who actually can. And I'll simply focus on what I was looking for, something that would allow me to see my line work clearly when transferring my image. The MetaQuest 3 has superior resolution, and many users online said it provided a clear image in all directions, while the MetaQuest 3S could appear blurry if you weren't looking straight ahead. While the price difference isn't huge, I was curious if it was worth spending the extra $200 for what I intended to use it for, especially since I wasn't sure I would like the process to begin with. I ummed and ahed for quite some time, but when this bad boy went on sale, I decided to save my pennies and pull the trigger on ordering the MetaQuest 3S. Once it arrived, it was time to fire it up, get acquainted with the interface, and see if my stingy, cost-saving decision would backfire. One of the best things about my work is traveling to beautiful locations, and this summer, I was fortunate enough to leave my mark across multiple spots in BC. These 2 projects took me to Squamish and White Rock, 2 stunning spots that aren't too far from home. Every wall is different, and they already come with their own unique challenges, so planning to incorporate a new method really did heighten the anxiety. I knew the wall in Squamish would require a lift, and the wall in White Rock would have to partially be completed on ladders due to obstructions. Although the MetaQuest 3S is a VR headset, we actually use AR, Augmented Reality, for this process. Unlike VR, which replaces the real world entirely with a digital, immersive environment, AR overlays digital elements onto your real environment. To do this, I use the contourapp, which allows me to project my digital art onto the wall, lock it into place, and then trace my image. One of the nifty features of the MetaQuest 3S is its ability to screen record, which will allow me to show you what I see when I'm doing this process. Here's the main interface where I open the contourapp. I have already emailed the image to myself, a high-resolution PNG file with a translucent background, and downloaded it using the MetaQuest 3S, so the file is waiting in my downloads folder. Once the image appears, I place the remote on the wall and hold down the A button while positioning the grid. This can take a few tries, but it's easy enough to redo if needed. Once everything looks lined up, I simply scale the image using both remotes. This is surprisingly accurate, however I find minor adjustments with the remote can be a little finicky, sometimes causing the image to lift or float off the wall, so I do my best to get the initial placement right to avoid too many adjustments after scaling. Once I'm happy with the placement, I lock the image in place and get to drawing. If you are devoted to traditional approaches like a doodle grid, this might not be your thing. But if you typically rely on a projector, I highly recommend giving it a try. The accuracy surprised me, not only locking the image in place while I was looking at the wall, but also ensuring it stayed there even when I looked away and back again. I also had far more visibility of my surroundings than I expected, which was a huge relief while working at heights. It felt just as accurate as using a projector, while eliminating the usual hassles, waiting for nightfall, ensuring you had enough distance from the wall, navigating sidewalks and roads, and visual obstacles like trees and lampposts. With the MetaQuest 3S, I could transfer my image first thing in the morning without worrying about any of those things. At times, the image would shift slightly, or parts of the design seemed to float off the wall, but those inaccuracies can happen with a projector as well. Since this stage is mainly about mapping out the composition, I expect to make corrections later. This drawing is only a first guideline, and if you use it the same way, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I also found that worries about the resolution of the 3S were unfounded. My images came out sharp and clear. As long as your digital drawing is higher resolution, I don't think you'll have any issues. All that being said, there were a few downsides I encountered throughout the process. I found the MetaQuest 3S's battery drained really quickly. On my first time using it in Squamish, the battery died before I finished transferring my image. Although the Contour app claims the image will stay locked in its safe position, when I returned after charging, it had shifted. Trying to realign it with the half-completed drawing was frustrating. So lesson learned, for larger projects, plan to split up the transfer process. Honestly, I found very little else to fault with the MetaQuest 3S or the Contour app. With a slightly longer battery life in the device and a few accuracy tweaks in the app, it would be a home run for me. Even as they are, they both get a resounding thumbs up, and I definitely recommend giving them a try. Thanks so much for joining me on this tech adventure. I hope my dive into the MetaQuest 3S and Contour app gave you some ideas for your own mural process, or at the very least, sparked curiosity to experiment. If you've tried AR in your work or you're thinking about doing so, drop me a comment below. I'd love to swap experiences and hear your thoughts. If you've enjoyed hanging out, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Until next time, keep creating, stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next one.